Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. As you know, I've focused my entire career on prioritizing Baltimore's young people. They are our future, and we must devote our resources, time, and energy into making sure that they have the opportunities they deserve to grow and develop into their best selves. However, we are continuing to see heartbreaking levels of youth violence in our city. We all know that this is unacceptable. And I made a promise to Baltimore that we would bring everyone and everything to the table to protect the lives, safety, and well being of our young people. Which is why I'm standing here today with a diverse group of interagency, government, and community partners who all want the same thing, and that's to see our young people thrive. The Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, the State's Attorney of Baltimore City's Office, BSIT, the University of Maryland School of Social Work, represented by Dr. Liggett Creel, our city school CEO, Dr. Sandalisis, Commissioner Harrison, the Moore administration, represented by Kayla Williams, Senior Intergovernmental Affairs Liaison, Recreation and Parks with our Director, Reggie Moore, the Mayor's Office of Employment Development, Waterfront Partnership, Sons of Phoenix, Rich Foundation, We Are Us, Catholic Charities, EBDI, and Johns Hopkins. And as we get closer to summer, and we got closer to summer, I charge my administration under City Administrator Faith Leach, our Deputy Mayor for Equity, Health, and Human Services, Dr. Duraza, our Mayor Office of Children and Family Success Executive Director, Dr. Brooks, and our Monty Executive Director, Jackson, to put together a comprehensive youth engagement plan for Baltimore. And they did just that. Today, we share that comprehensive plan, appropriately titled Be More This Summer with you all. This plan was informed by the input of over 300 young people involved in a series of discussions across 8 schools and recreation centers about what they wanted to see from their city and in their city this summer for them. This plan is designed to ensure that our young people are safe and engaged, that they are provided opportunities to enjoy their time off from school by participating in activities that we know they want to be involved in. Activities like midnight basketball, pool parties, concerts, just to name a few. While we'll share more details about this summer program and events later this week, the plan also includes how we'll manage engaging our young people around Baltimore's curfew ordinances in a way, and I want to be very clear about this, that limits unnecessary interactions with law enforcement while also ensuring accountability for parents and guardians. We know Baltimore has questions about what this will look like, and given the weight of this conversation, we are gathered here today to share that information. Beginning Memorial Day weekend and going through Labor Day weekend, we are going to be standing up 2 connection centers, youth connection centers. C.C. Jackson Recreation Center on the west side in Park Heights, and Councilwoman Rita Church Community Center in East Baltimore. While I'll let Executive Director Jackson get into the details, I want to be clear. We will be engaging young people around the curfew and holding those who choose to participate in unacceptable activities accountable. However, we are doing this the right way by minimizing those unnecessary law enforcement interactions and providing the services and resources that our young people need, be that social, mental, or emotional. These are not detention centers for our young people. We purposely have them at recreation centers. These spaces will intentionally balance positive engagement opportunities with accountability for youth and their parents. Our approach will be informed by lessons learned from past curfew attempts and operations, including the need to lead with structural supports outside of school hours and immediate connections to services and resources tailored to the specific needs of our young people and their families. And it will be integrated with our programmatic offerings in a way that encourages young people to engage in safe, enjoyable activities that we know they want to be a part of. While I want to acknowledge that a curfew policy will not stop crime, it is a piece to the larger puzzle. This activation is in response to the growing need for us to connect our young people and their families to vital supports and provide them with those safe, welcoming environments as an alternative to being out late at night when, frankly, they shouldn't be. And we all know it. I want Baltimore to know that any young person under 17 out after 11 p.m. and under 14 out after 10 p.m. on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and holidays without a parent or guardian will be engaged by non-law enforcement staff where they will be first encouraged to go home or call their parent or guardian. Then if they can't, they'll be transported to an engagement center where they will be supervised by staff and areas to play, eat, or sleep will be made available while awaiting pickup. And as a part of our integrated approach, at pickup, a calendar of summer program information will be provided to both youth and their guardian to raise awareness of youth-centered summer options and to defer future curfew violations. We all want our young people to have a safe and engaging summer. Enjoy that time off of school and get connected and develop in the best way possible. That is what this is about. I want to remind folks that our curfew activation is not centered around punitive consequences for our young people or their families. This is an opportunity for us to connect with them, meet them where they are, and raise awareness around all the great events we have planned for them this summer. In fact, many of you may remember that as a councilman in 2013 and 14, I rewrote Baltimore's curfew law to make sure that we were required to offer and send supports for families. That is what this is about. Remember, we don't just want our young people to do more this summer. We want them to be more this summer and beyond. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Jackson.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by thanking all of our partners who were involved in the creation of Be More this summer and the integrated engagement strategy. A very special thank you goes to Dr. Brooks and the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success team and Dr. DeRaza for their partnership in this work. Our young people need and deserve our collective support, our investment, and our love to make sure that they grow up safe, alive, and free. And it's not just on individual parents. It's on all of us, the entire village, to look after our young people. And this plan that includes a host of structured and safe activities, coupled with a curfew activation that prioritizes the safety of all of Baltimore, is exactly that. The village coming together to protect our young people and support their ability to thrive. As the mayor said, we're taking a distinctly different approach toward the planning and execution of our curfew engagement strategy. This is about striking a balance between making sure that our young people have safe access to places and providing them with resources and engagement that we know that they're looking for. This approach is something that hasn't been tried here before in Baltimore, not in any of our 3 prior curfew activations. Past curfew attempts have overemphasized the role of law enforcement in a way that alienated our young people and framed curfew engagement as a punishment instead of an opportunity to connect with our children. This time around, we're emphasizing support, safety, and engagement as critical parts of this process. We've identified 3 primary static locations where specifically trained engagement staff are going to be active based on the popularity of these locations for youth gatherings. Those areas are the Inner Harbor, Fells Point, and Federal Hill. In addition, curfew engagement staff is also going to dynamically mobilize as needed to areas where young people are gathering to encourage them to disperse and to return home and share programming information with them. It's equally important that individual or small groups of children and young people be engaged during this strategy because in many cases, these are the young people that are at the most risk of harm or in need of social supports. And so it's with this in mind that transportation vehicles will also travel through Baltimore's neighborhoods to assess where curfew engagement should occur. I want to reiterate that this is not going to be police going around criminalizing black children. In fact, when we engage young people around the curfew, that work is going to be led by social workers and youth peer ambassadors to assess the situation, to offer resources, to share programming information, and engage directly with young people in trauma-informed ways. Gone are the days when BPD drove young people around in the back of their patrol cars or police vans to curfew locations. Young people will be transported to youth connection centers in appropriately branded vehicles, and teams of non-law enforcement engagement staff will handle that transportation. At the centers, we'll have social, mental, and emotional supports at the ready, including mental health clinicians, social workers, service providers, and Baltimore City Recs and Parks staff. Centers will also include age-appropriate spaces and activities to ensure that our younger children and teenagers are equally engaged as they wait to be picked up by a parent or a guardian. In line with our commitment to Baltimore's young people, if engagement staff see signs of neglect or abuse, young people will be referred to the Department of Social Services, where screeners are going to be available 24/7. If you want to see what our curfew engagement looks like, we've printed out a process map to help Baltimore follow along. The following accountability measures will be put in place to limit repeat engagements. For a first offense, a written notice and warning will be given to a parent and guardian at pickup. For a second offense, a fine of $50 or family counseling will be imposed. For a third offense, a fine of up to $500 or community service for the parent or guardian will be imposed. The City of Baltimore is in the process of contracting with Johns Hopkins Center for Adolescent Health to complete a process and an impact evaluation following the completion of the summer programming. This evaluation will inform future programming and plan sustainability moving forward. Ultimately, this is about communal parenting. These are all of our children. We all want this to be a positive experience for our young children, and we want all of our children to be safe at home or involved in structured programming that will be available across the city throughout the entire summer. To this end, young people who are involved in city-sponsored programming will be given city-issued wristbands to verify their participation, and they have an hour to get home at the conclusion of the events that they're participating in. We're excited to work with our partners and our friends at the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success to deliver on the administration's integrated strategy and ensure our young people are engaged this summer. This wouldn't have been possible without partners who truly believe in the value of Baltimore's young people. Partners like Dr. K, who is behind me at the UMB School of Social Work, who's partnered with the administration around this strategy to ensure that social workers are on the front lines of our response, helping our young people and connecting them to resources that they need to live their best lives. At this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. K.
Thank you, Director Jackson. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Kyla Liggett-Creel, Dr. K from the University of Maryland, Baltimore. We are honored to partner with the city to provide support to youth during the summer at the curfew centers. It takes a village to raise a child, as Director Jackson just referred to, and we are proud to be part of that village. The youth of Baltimore are all of our children, and we need to be part of providing for the needs of our children. The University of Maryland, Baltimore will be placing social work support in the connection centers to assist with linking youth and families with resources as needed. We can assist them in connected with youth development programs. We can assist them with accessing food, reconnecting with schools, getting vital records, enrolling in programs, or just having a supportive adult to speak with. We can also help youth identify their strengths and gifts so that they can continue to grow and thrive and become the leaders we know that they are. We are excited to be part of this initiative, and we look forward to working collaboratively with Baltimore City. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jackson, and thank you, Dr. K, and the entire team for your great work on setting the framework for how we're going to deal with our young people in curfew this summer. And with that, you all, we will take questions. Oh, hold on. Dave, you got to come over to the mic. They're recording it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, what happens when a young person refuses to cooperate? And I would like to ask a follow-up.
Yep, I'll let the director start that, and I'll follow up on that, Director.
So the first thing that I'll state here, and thank you for your question, is that the curfew ordinance is not rooted in criminality, right? And so what we won't be doing is detaining or forcing our young people to be transported to centers. There's a reason, though, why we've been really thoughtful about making sure that both a social worker and a youth peer are on the transport vehicles. Because just like many of us, young people respond to their peers. And so we'll be using those young folks to strongly encourage young people to, one, go home, right? That's the first thing that we're going to be having young people say. Two, ask if the young person needs someone to come and pick them up and whether or not they can facilitate making a phone call for them for that pickup. And then as a last resort, letting them know that the youth connection centers are safe places, engaging places, places where they can get more information about summer programming so that when they do want to hang out in the evening, they've got somewhere that's structured and safe to go. And last but not least, being willing to provide that transportation there. At the end of the day, if a young person decides that they are not going to disperse, again, we won't be forcing young people into vehicles, but I suspect that we'll either see young people go home because we plan on being pretty relentless or getting into the vehicle.
Thank you.
And David, I'll just, in 1 second, I'll follow up. Slowest helicopter ever. And I'll just follow up, David, to say that I want us all to be reminded on a few things. One, we're building and coming on this in this work. Many of these people that we heard us talk about today were involved in the Squeegee Collaborative and how we attack that issue, right? And we attack that issue not having BPD, as it has traditionally done, lead that effort. And we've seen the result of that. This work, informed by young people, informed by their peers, right? That's how we're going to make that approach, right? And we have to be reminded of that and make sure that we lift that up. Because just like during the pandemic, when we had ordinances and things and orders that BPD couldn't enforce, we were able to do that by working with community partners and others to make sure that Baltimore was doing the right thing. And that's how we became a city that fared far well, much better than other cities around the country. And even when BPD was leading the enforcement in those previous years, they were never forcing young people into the vehicles.
As a follow-up, what will prompt police to engage? Will it be complaint-driven only? Do they just happen to see at the memo says 10 people or more? And I know what you guys have said early on in the press conferences, you don't want unnecessary interaction with police. Doesn't this force that kind of interaction?
Yeah, I'll start and let the solicitor start there, and then I'll come behind the city solicitor. Madam Solicitor? There she is.
Good afternoon. So the 10 people, if they are after curfew hours, so it would not be any engagement. And what the police officer would do, according to the PCM, the memo that I'm sure you already have, Dave, is that they would contact, the police officer would contact their supervisor and then also connect with the Youth Connection Center. So that is triggering for the resource to actually come available, because the engagement, the first engagement, will not be a police officer. It will be one of the partners. So it will be, it triggers them to know to contact the Youth Connection Center, also their supervisor if necessary, and also their partners who would engage.
David, just to finish that point, I think, and I know I said this at the initial press conference too, while many folks are focused solely on the groups and large groups. I think that's important. I think we also should note that we're also talking about very young children out by themselves, long ways away from home, and everybody, police, every government agency, every community member has a role and responsibility to make sure that those young people are okay too. And we can't just be negligent in that. This is about those young people. This is about those stories that you heard me tell you about 4 and 5-year-old children who came to a youth connection center on purpose. This is about those children who came and said that they knew things about parents that they should never know, right? This is about connecting young people who are clearly in need to services that they need for them and their families, and we have to do that, and do that in a very deep and intentional way. Keith?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. You called for this curfew last month after gun violence at the Inner Harbor that involved youth, and rightly so. You were concerned about this. Specifically, why do you think this curfew plan will be effective in curbing juvenile crime? And then, of course, Mr. Mayor, I have a follow-up.
I'll say again, Keith, and you and I have talked about this a billion times, right? You hear us say again that this is a part of a wider plan, a whole plan of summer engagement for our young people that goes into the other engagements that we have and plans we have around young people to help us reduce violence. Never did I say that the youth curfew itself would go out here and be a silver bullet to reducing youth violence in Baltimore, because I'll tell you this again, there is no silver bullet. But what I will say to you, if I'm 10, 11, 12 years old, and we've had 12-year-olds murdered on the streets of Baltimore this year, and I have a young person like me, a youth ambassador from Heart Smiles and other organizations come to me and say, you know you're not supposed to be out here. It's not safe. And we take that young person over to C.C. Jackson or over to Rita Church, and we find out that young person is living in a home where they are essentially the breadwinner, or where they are being abused, where they are having their family members are struggling with addiction, and we intercede in that, we are saving that life. That young person could become the victim of violence and or grow to be carrying out that violence. That's what this is about. And that is what you have to understand, that this is not something that can be sensationalized. This is not something to play with and run over and over again. This is about saving lives in every single way.
Very good. Mr. Mayor, and the follow-up.
One more point on that.
Yes, sir.
Because our decisions are also rooted in data, what we know to be true is that comparing this year to last year, between 9 p.m. and midnight, we saw a 100+% increase in youth homicides, shootings, and acts of violence. The curfew begins at 9 p.m. for a certain age group and at 11 p.m. for another.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the follow-up question, I don't know whether you're going to answer this or the police commissioner, but it's regarding the policy 1205. BPD suspended policy 1205, which was part of a previous curfew enforcement on the books, which allowed so-called pat-downs of juveniles. The new memo sent out by BPD referenced that it's suspended. Why was that particular policy suspended?
Both the commissioner and the city solicitor will take that question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Curfew is not a violation of criminal law. It is a status offense. And because it is a status offense and status offense only, national best practices have suggested that when we encounter a young person for truancy by day or curfew by night, unless we have reasonable suspicion to believe that they are carrying a firearm for a status offense alone, absent that reasonable suspicion of a crime being committed, we're not doing a pat-down. And so we're following the Constitution there.
Great, thank you.
Hi there.
Hold 1 second, man. Go ahead.
I just wanted to reemphasize the goal is to de-emphasize the role of BPD in this entire process. This is part of a comprehensive and collaborative approach where, as the mayor has stated, as the Squeegee Collaborative has done, where we are de-emphasizing law enforcement's role here in bringing more resources to our kids to solve our problems.
how will the city go about verifying the ages of the young people they encounter?
Yep, I'll let Director Jackson walk us through. Bless you. Walk you through how that will happen, Director.
Thank you for your question. Obviously, we won't be identifying or requesting identification from each young person that we encounter, but we will be using our best judgment with regard to what the appearance of the young person tells us with regard to age. Either way, what we're talking about is positive engagement with a young person that is either bound by the curfew or a young person who's not, right? So we are having positive interactions and conversations with young folks and making the appropriate connections to resources, transportation to youth connection centers as deemed appropriate. It's going to be a bit easier for us to determine if someone is 14 and younger, obviously, than to determine if someone is 16 or 17 years old. Either way, we're going to make sure that the engagement is happening. And quite frankly, the engagement may serve as a catalyst in itself with regard to folks starting to move home and or to join us at a connection center.
Good afternoon. I just have two questions. I know a lot of the stipulations of this plan is new. It's never been done before. Other than the news media and social media, how are parents getting this information? Are they getting letters going out in the mail, or how are they receiving this? Because a lot of people don't watch the news and they don't know about the curfew and everything else.
Thank you for that question. I would offer that this is probably the most robust communications plan that I've ever been a part of. So we have printed 80,000 palm cards that are two-sided. One side speaks to the curfew ordinance and the violations associated with that ordinance, and to demonstrate true integration and really wanting to drive parents and young people to programming. The other side of that palm card does just that. It directs them to the Teen Zone page on the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, so that they are aware of programming that's happening in their neighborhoods and around the city. Those are being dropped in backpacks of all 75,000 Baltimore City public school students on Friday. In addition to that, we have recordings that have been made by Dr. DeRosa that are going to be going out as robocalls and text messaging across the entirety of Baltimore City. That robocall will also go out on a routine basis on 92Q, on 95.9, on WEAA, and through Baltimore City Public Schools. In addition to that, we'll have information on our website, on Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success website. The mayor will be recording a video on this himself tomorrow. And we also are making sure that Charm TV produces information here. Last but certainly not least, because I want to drive this point home about the power of youth voice. Youth ambassadors are going to be recording videos and messages and asking and answering frequently asked questions to make sure that young people are hearing directly from their peers on this. So I would offer a fairly robust, comprehensive comms package is rolling out for this.
And let me start that off by saying that it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Yes.
It's that simple, Brittany. And I would, and 11 p.m. for the older ones. Do you know where your children are? And I would request the assistance of all of our partners in the media to run that like you did back in the day. Run that so that everyone who sees will know.
And then my last question, for the children who are taken to these youth centers, when parents don't come pick them up, what's next?
So I'm going to rewind the question a little bit just to make sure that folks know what the attempts to getting parents to the centers will be. Because we're partnering very closely with Baltimore City Public Schools, their staff will also be there. And so when students and young people arrive at the center and we identify who they are, we are going to be using a Baltimore City Public School team member to access their emergency card information, which should house not only their primary contacts, but their secondary and tertiary contacts. As we make the call to the first contact, if we don't make contact, we'll go to the second and then go to the tertiary. And we'll continue to do that in 15-minute clips until we've reached someone. If at the end of the night we don't reach anyone, we will be engaging our partner, the Department of Social Services.
Two questions. The BPD memo talks about law enforcement focusing on groups of 10 or more kids. Will law enforcement be tasked at all with approaching kids in smaller groups? If there's groups of 3 or 4 kids, does BPD get involved in those cases?
Yeah, I'll let the commissioner talk about that. But I'll say again that, as I said earlier, if you're a city official, regardless, if you see some 5-year-old walking around at 1, 2 in the morning, you have a duty to make sure that you intercede and do whatever is in your power to get that young person in the care of DSS, period.
I think my answer is aligned with the mayor. Police officers who are out there and observe what we might believe is a very young person, and if what we believe is a scenario that poses danger to that individual, then we have to do something to ensure that that individual is safe. And so this is not about taking the child into custody. This is about making sure the child is near their home, on the way home, and if they're in a desolate area or an area that the police officer would believe is unsafe, and it's unsafe for that child to be there, well, we would take the appropriate action, coordinate with the supervisor, coordinate with the partners, and make sure those partners who are tasked with coming and engaging can actually get to do that.
Go again.
Yeah, so the city has huge staffing issues across many agencies right now. Do we know how many people are going to be needed to staff curfew centers as well as transport, and are all of those people in place right now?
Yep, Director Jackson has all detail on that.
So within the centers across the 2 sites, there will be 18 staff members. We have identified agency partners that will be in those spaces, and those agency partners have provided a list of the folks that are going to be standing in those roles. With regard to our static locations that we identified, Fells Point, Federal Hill, and the Inner Harbor, we're talking about a staff of about 9 to 10 across these 3 areas. And we've also identified many of who those folks will be and anticipate finalizing the list of individuals today.
That includes transport staff as well?
So, yes, so transportation staff, again, in partnership with Baltimore City Public Schools, the transport vehicles are Baltimore City Public School vehicles. I mentioned during my remarks that they were going to be very well branded. And so in addition to having Baltimore City Public Schools brand on these vehicles, they will also have Be More This Summer magnetized brands so that young people know that they are getting in a vehicle that's sponsored by the city. Baltimore City public school bus drivers will be the drivers of these vehicles. And you heard from Dr. K and also from me before that we're going to have a social worker on each bus. And Joni Heart Smiles will be providing, which is a community-based partner, will be providing youth peers on each bus. And yes, all of those folks have been identified.
Sir?
I just wanted to ask one question about what critics are saying about the enforcement part of this. Are you giving too much control to kids in this process as far as they get to decide whether or not they go to these centers? They don't get arrested, they have some fines, but they may also be hearing, back to that last question, that we don't go to the Inner Harbor, we don't go to Fed Hill, we don't go to Fells Point, we can go anywhere else, and we can kind of roam around the city and not accept anything. So what do you feel like you're giving too much control to kids in this situation?
We don't. Well, no, let's rewind and do a little bit of education here. We never arrested kids for curfew in Baltimore. Anybody that told you that is a bald-faced liar, period. The penalties, the criminal penalties for curfew in the old law were always on the parents. And how idiotic of it was it of us to back then potentially see a 7-year-old out on the street on a Thursday or Friday night, arrest a parent, and not expect a 7-year-old to be out on the street the next night when their parent's in jail. This is about doing this approach the right way. And again, even when BPD was doing it in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, they never forced the young people to come. Never happened. They never chased young people. Never happened. And we know we had success in that law enforcement focus model with some growth as we grew and had the other agencies involved. We know, based on what we've done with Squeegee, we know, based on what we do with Opportunity Youth, we know, based on what these community partners and all the folks you see standing here with us today accomplish with young people each and every day, that we can have the desired impact. And want to be very clear again that we want our young people to come to the Inner Harbor. We want our young people to enjoy all the things that Baltimore has to offer. But young people are not supposed to be outside at midnight and 1 a.m. It's that simple. And we will be doing programming here for young people. We'll be doing that this weekend for teens, right where you and I are standing here talking today. This is about making sure that we make this approach in the right way. We can do the both and. We are not sending mixed messages to our young people. We are not trying to criminalize them. We are trying to work to make sure that they are safe and that they and their families have the resources necessary for them to thrive.
No, we're coming up on time, but I don't know if there's anyone from Heart Smiles here who can talk about training or whether it be on de-escalation or...
She unfortunately is actually at the school system doing what she does each and every day, working with young people.
Is anyone here able to speak about training, whether it be on de-escalation or effectiveness, when it comes to the peers involved?
Yeah, Director Jackson can address that. But what I will say before she does that is that Heart Smiles and these other organizations, Rich and others, that's what they do. They meet these young people where they are. They talk the language. They understand the culture of these young people, and that means a lot. Not even I, who many people see as someone so young and who connects with our young people in a deep way, can always reach them. You have to. If you're talking about issues around young people, you have to have them be a part of the solution. That's where we failed at so many times. So many adults trying to solve issues for young people without involving them. That's why Squeegee Collaborative is successful, because they were a part of it. We can't keep shutting the young people out and trying to treat them in a different way. Oh, yep.
Also, Heart Smiles is a primary partner with the University of Maryland with a program called Healing Youth Alliance. So the young people actually have received 6 months of training on mental health, resilience, and healing-centered engagement and trauma-informed care. So we're talking about experts who are going to be going out and doing this engagement.
Thank you, everybody.